I was still an hour away when she called me, whispering, crying, saying I was already at the cabin, just outside, smiling at her through the glass. It was supposed to be a weekend getaway, just the two of us. My girlfriend Anna had borrowed a co-worker's remote cabin in the mountains, no neighbors, no Wi-Fi, barely even a road leading in. I had to park a mile out and hike the rest of the way up through thick woods, slushy with melting snow. I'd lost service not long after I started the hike, so when my phone buzzed in my jacket pocket, I paused, surprised. "1 bar. Anna." I answered, a little breathless, from the incline. "Hey," almost as she was crying. "Why are you doing this?" "What do you mean? You're outside, you're at the window, why won't you talk to me?" I stopped walking. My boots sank into the soft, wet ground, heartbeats suddenly louder than the wind. "I'm not there yet," I said slowly. "I'm still on the trail, maybe half an hour away." There was silence, then no, "I'm looking at you." I didn't know what to say. All I heard was her breathing sharp, scared, and a faint tap 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 in the background, like fingernails on glass. "Anna, listen to me. That's not me. Lock the doors. Don't open anything." She didn't respond, but I heard the unmistakable sound of a deadbolt sliding into place. Then the call dropped. I tried to call her back, but the bar of service was gone. Just cold wind and the hush of trees shifting in the breeze. I ran. The path to the cabin wound through narrow, pine-lined stretches, and the snow made everything quieter than it should have been. Each footfall felt swallowed. I kept hearing things behind me, branches snapping, faint whistles of wind that sounded like breath. But when I looked back, there was nothing, only the trail and the stillness pressing in. I didn't stop moving. When the cabin finally came into view, it was dusk. The lights inside were on. Something flickered past one of the windows. I froze behind a tree just out of view. From where I stood, I could just barely see the front of the cabin, the front door, and the window beside it. There were smears on the glass. Then something moved, slowly, unnaturally. A figure standing with its face just inches from the window, pressed against it like it didn't understand personal space. It was smiling, a wide, horrible grin that didn't move, just stayed. Its hands scraped at the glass, fingers twitching like they didn't know what they were doing. Long, pale hands, like paper stretched over wood. And I swear to God it was wearing my jacket. I ducked lower, my breath steaming in the cold air. I wanted to call out to Anna, but I didn't want that thing to know I was here. Somehow it already knew. It wanted me to see it. I circled wide around the back, using trees and the slope of the land to stay hidden. I crouched low and crept to the rear window. Anna's bedroom. I tapped once, softly. Nothing. I tried again. Finally, she appeared. Her face was pale, eyes wide with tears. When she saw it was me, actually me, her hand flew to her mouth. I motioned for her to unlock the window. She hesitated, then looked behind her, and nodded. A moment later, the window slid up, and I climbed in. She collapsed into me, whispering, "It hasn't left the window, it just stares and scratches." I pulled her into the bedroom closet, and we shut the door quietly behind us. We didn't speak. We just sat in the dark, breathing together, listening. From the front room came the soft, steady scratch, but then it stopped. Silence. And then, footsteps. Heavy, uneven. I didn't remember hearing the door open, or break, or unlock, just the steps. Now closer, a dragging sound, and a voice. But it wasn't my voice. It was like someone trying to be meal-like. They'd heard me talk once, and were repeating it back through too many layers of static. "Anna, it's just me. You let me in, remember?" She started to cry again, barely holding it in. I wrapped my hand over hers and held my breath. The steps moved past the closet, then stopped right in front of the door. We waited, no sound. And then, from inside the closet, a voice whispered right behind my ear, "Now there's two of us." That's the last thing I remember before I woke up in the snow, half a mile down the trail. No footprints around me, no blood, no sign I'd even been at the cabin. I called Anna's number over and over again. No answer. A ranger found the cabin 2 days later. Empty, lights off, door locked from the inside. But there were scratches on the window. Long, deep, ones like something had clawed at the glass. And in the snow outside, just under the sill, they found a boot print. It matched mine. It sounded like a body slamming into the grill hard enough to shatter the headlight. But when we stepped out to check, there was no deer in the road, just something breathing in the ditch. We were maybe 20 minutes outside of Taos, cutting through a back road only locals really use tight turns. No lights, and trees on both sides, so close they looked like walls. My buddy Nate was driving. I was half asleep in the passenger seat, boots off, rifle in the back, blood still under my fingernails from the last coyote of the trip. It was just past 11 p.m. Cold, you know, that kind of cold where the windshield fogs if you even think about breathing. That kind. Nate was telling some dumb story when something bolted out of the woods. It was a fast white blur, low to the ground, and before either of us could react, boom, we hit it hard. Truck bounced once, metal cracked, and then silence. No thump of a body hitting the ground. No flailing, just that awful silence. Like the forest itself was holding its breath. Nate cursed and slammed the brakes. We rolled to a stop, headlights flickering. "What was that?" he said. "Deer, maybe," I offered, unbuckling. "Maybe a coyote." We got out. The air hit like ice water, and I immediately smelled something wet fur and copper. Not blood, not exactly, just wrong. The front grille was cracked, one headlight busted, steam hissing, but what got me was the windshield. Something had left a smear across the glass, like a handprint, but stretched, boneless. We looked down the road. Nothing. Then Nate pointed. The ditch. At first, it just looked like a crumpled shape in the dark, half covered in weeds, limbs bent at weird angles. I took a step closer. It looked like a deer, but not. Its skin was patchy, hairless in places. One of its legs was twisted behind it, clearly broken. I whispered, "You think it's still alive?" Nate didn't answer. Because it was moving, slow, painful, but upward. It stood, not like an animal, like a man, balancing upright, legs trembling, the broken one dragging like it didn't even matter. We backed toward the truck, then it did something I still can't explain. It made a noise deep in its throat, like gurgling, and then, perfectly clear, it imitated the sound of our engine. That same sputtering growl our truck makes when it's idling in the cold, over and over. I whispered, "Get in the truck, get in." Now, we jumped in, slammed the doors, locked them. Nate fumbled with the keys, dropped them, swore, found them again. When the engine finally turned over, the thing was halfway to the road, and it was smiling, no lip. Just a tear where its mouth should have been, stretched back like a slit in a tarp. As we sped off, it mimicked the rev of our engine again, louder now. It didn't sound like an animal anymore. It sounded like a man trying to pretend to be a machine. And we didn't look back. We didn't speak until we were 2 towns over, at a diner with too many lights and too few people. Nate stared at his coffee, hands shaking. He finally said, "Did you see its hands?" I hadn't looked that close. He nodded to himself. It had fingers, too many, and they were flat, like roadkill. I didn't want to know what he meant. We filed a report the next day, said we hit a deer, didn't mention the breathing, or the standing, or the voice that sounded like an idling engine trapped in a throat. 2 days later, Nate sent me a video from his truck's dash cam. He told me not to show anyone. I watched it once. Right after the hit, the footage skips just static, then comes back blurry. But you can hear it, that sound, the revving, from outside the truck, and at the very end just a second before the video cuts so you can see it in the distance. Standing in the road, waving, with both arms.
The voice on the emergency band repeated a Mayday word forward, same tone, same cadence, same screams as the call I'd responded to 3 days earlier. Except the woman who made that call had died on impact. I'm a volunteer firefighter out near Dulce, New Mexico. It's dry country scrubland, mesas, not much between towns except dirt roads and ranch fences. Most nights are quiet. When it isn't quiet, it's usually something simple. Brush fire, overturned truck, drunk rancher with a shotgun stuck in his boot. I keep my radio on almost all the time, even when I'm off shift. It's just habit, comforting in a way. Most folks out here do. That's why I heard it. I was cleaning up dinner late around 11 when my scanner clicked on and played a distress call. Unit 4, come in. I rolled off the highway. I think I'm pinned. I can't feel my legs. It's cold. Please, anyone hears this? ... Froze. Not because of the words, but because I recognized the voice. 3 days earlier, I was on the scene of a fatal rollover off Highway 64. Female driver, mid-30s, alone. We pulled her body from a crushed Subaru, The call she made to dispatch before she passed had been replayed over the scanner that night. And this voice, it was identical. Same pacing, same exact words, same quiver in the voice. At first, I thought someone was screwing with the channel. You get prank calls now and then. But this didn't feel like a prank. It felt wrong. I asked around. No one else reported hearing the call, but I'd recorded it on my handheld. I played it back 4 times. Each time, I noticed something else. There was no background noise, no static, no road noise, just her voice clearer than it should have been. And at the very end, after the last please, something breathed into the mic. Long, low, and not quite human. It's like something learning how to inhale. I pinged the signal source. It bounced from an unregistered frequency about 5 miles east on the edge of old ranchland. Near an abandoned property we sometimes used for wildfire training. Against my better judgment, I drove out. Midnight, by the time I got there. My headlights lit up, an old barn half collapsed, roof caved in, dust coating everything like snow. The wind was still, but the air felt thick. Not humid, just heavy. I stepped out with my flashlight and scanned the ground. That's when I saw the prints. Animal tracks, large, canine, deep in the dirt. It's too large for any dog, even out here. Blood in some of them, fresh. They led toward the barn. I followed slowly, radio crackling softly in my coat pocket. The closer I got to the barn, the stranger the prints became. The pads seemed to shift shape. Claw marks shortened, the prints stretched, widened. Then, halfway across the dirt lot, it turned into bare human feet. I stopped cold. Bare. No shoes, no socks, just naked feet. With blood seeping from the heel, the prints walked directly to the barn's main door, which was open, barely. I wanted to leave. Every part of me was screaming to get back in the truck, but then the scanner flared up again. Same voice, same distress call. This time, closer. I pulled the radio out, and in the silence after the final pleas, I heard something else. It whispered, "It's warm in here." I stepped inside. The barn was hollow. The beams groaned, and the dirt floor crunched under my boots. I panned the flashlight left, then right. Nothing, just dust, rot, and darkness. Then above me, a creak. I raised the light. Something was crouched in the rafters, silhouetted, not quite human. Its limbs were too long, and it was watching me. When the light hit its face, it flinched, but not like an animal. It tilted its head, slow and curious, as if it recognized me. And then in my voice it said, "Firefighter down, please respond." I ran, didn't look back, didn't stop until I hit the road and floored it back toward town. Later I checked the barn again with 2 other responders. Nothing there, no prints, no signal on the radio. But here's the thing, my handheld still had the recording. And now sometimes late at night when I'm driving alone, the scanner kicks on with something quiet. A voice, a laugh, a breath. Sometimes it's mine, but I haven't said a word.
The singing started just after 2 a.m. soft, low, drifting in through the thin walls of my trailer like smoke. It was the lullaby our mom used to sing to us, the one my sister used to hum in her sleep, the one that stopped the night she died in that fire 6 years ago. I live alone, small trailer out near Espanola, New Mexico. Nothing, fancy 1 bedroom, bad insulation, aluminum walls that pop when it gets cold. I work construction during the day, and most nights I'm too tired to do anything but crash with the radio on low. But that night, I woke up in the dark. No wind, no storm, just stillness. And that singing, at first I thought I was dreaming. The voice was faint, almost like someone humming just outside the window. Then I heard the words, "Lay you down in silver snow. Close your eyes, the stars will glow." My blood went cold. That's not a song you hear on the radio. It's not one you find anywhere, really. My mom made it up when we were kids. My sister, Ellie, loved it so much she sang it every night to her dolls until we were teenagers. And when she died, when the house went up in flames and I couldn't get to her in time, that song died with her. But now, someone was singing it, outside. I sat up slowly, heart pounding. My trailer windows are thin sheet plastic panes with warped screens. I reached over and turned off the fan. The silence that followed was thick, like a held breath. And the voice was clearer now. Female, gentle, off-key. like Ellie used to sing it on purpose to be funny. But this time, the notes were dragging, like whoever was singing didn't want the verse to end. The moon will keep you while you dream. I stood and crept to the window. The porch light was off. The yard was dark, just pale gravel and dry bushes stretching into blackness. I almost didn't look, but something in me had to. I pulled the curtain back a couple inches. There was a woman standing at the edge of the yard, barefoot, pale, wearing something loose that moved in the breeze. I couldn't see her face. Her back was to me, but her head was tilted to the side, and her arms were swaying slowly like she was dancing, and she was still singing. But now it wasn't a lullaby, it was noise. The words dissolved, became low, garbled sounds, guttural, like someone imitating a song they didn't understand. Then, without turning, the figure stopped swaying, and the voice said, still sweet, still soft, "You never came for me." I dropped the curtain. I don't remember backing away, but I did. I stumbled into the kitchen, heart slamming in my chest, grabbed my phone. No signal. I tried the landline, dead tone. I don't even have a landline. The voice came again inside now. I waited. I turned. The back door, the one I never used, was cracked open. I grabbed a crowbar from behind the fridge and crept toward it, every hair on my body standing on end. The air smelled wrong. Not smoke, not rot. Just burnt plastic, like melted Barbie dolls. I slammed the door shut and locked it, pulled a chair in front of it for good measure. But as I turned back to the living room, she was standing at the front window, right up against the glass, still singing, but her mouth wasn't moving. The sound was coming from somewhere else. Her eyes, God, her eyes, they looked just like Ellie's, big, dark, but hollow, like something wherein her face had forgotten what eyes were for. I didn't move, didn't breathe, and then, in perfect imitation of my little sister's voice, it whispered, "I'm still burning." The light above me flickered. The singing stopped, and when I blinked she was gone. I didn't sleep that night. Didn't leave the trailer until morning. I checked the yard, no footprints. No sign of anyone. Just a faint smell of melted rubber in the breeze. I don't tell people this story, but every now and then, late at night, when the world goes quiet, I still hear it. That voice, soft, off-key, waiting for me to sing along.